Right, I was told I had to do a little self-introduction, so just to give you a little bit of where I'm coming from. I am an architect and I am enthusiastic, although I'm deeply, often very unenthusiastic about my profession. So I say often I'm an architect, despite what the university I went to tried to teach me. It wasn't this one. Despite every single practice that I work for, and despite, here we are, controversial, wearing the badge as well, what, to a greater or lesser extent, my professional body purports it to be. But there we go. I do run, co-run with a colleague who's based in the southwest, small practical through architecture. I am now London-based, collaborating with some MEP engineers, dragging them into the world of building physics. I am on National Council at the RIBA. I would like to continue. Those of you who are eligible to vote, maybe think about that. Depending on what you like or whatever I say. I chair construction strategy in the RIBA, quite a controversial group. It cross-cuts across many others, and it's in direct response to the government construction strategy. Unlike what most of the members of the RIBA would want, to try and do battle with the government construction strategy, actually to say, this is a fantastic opportunity, how are we going to get real benefit from it? I was just creating something called the CIC Task Force 3.6, which is a research group all about integrated working. I am a regular irritant to the CIC BIM group. I did create the Twitter feed and various other things for the BIM group at one point. I also sit on the soft landings work group of the government construction strategy, the performance work group, and most recently involved with the DCLG and their behavioural research network, undertaking studies of how the built environment affects human behaviours. One of the areas that interests me most. I am also working with the Cabinet Office Behavioural Insights team to look at the real implications of the Green Deal, to actually try and get to the bottom of, you insulate someone's loft and their energy use goes up. Unintended consequences. Probably very pertinent today, I was a founder of an organisation called Teamwork back in '99, where over a 3-year period we ran demonstration projects that did all level 3 and level 4 beyond. We did everything that people are aspiring to do back then with technology. It was different technology, limited, but we did it then. But the primary focus there was probably behavioural more than technological. How do people work together? And probably the thing is expected. I am sometimes caused or referred to as an iconoclast, and just an aside, I do DJ as well. But anyway, statement number 1. You're often told, turn your bloody phone off in your workshop. You know, I hope, though, that people now, because we're living in the information age, get your smart devices on. I know at least one person here is joining the Twitter feed that is happening, but not many others at the moment. So, beyond BIM, evolution of the built environment. To BIM or not to BIM? We all knew it was rhetorical, it was a mute question. And we've had some excellent stuff, particularly from Graham and indeed from Elizabeth, about building buildings right. Of course, with BIM, you can do it so much better. You can really make those buildings fantastic. So the thing I really want to talk about is the need of building the right buildings, something we are not necessarily that good at. Not yet, anyway. And again, and it was wonderful following after Anne, because lots of the stuff, easy to say, the only bit I would say in BIM that matters is information. The B could be a variety of things, and for some, it does cause limitation. And the M, modelling or management, doesn't much matter. Several concepts I want to go through in the time I've got, and I'll try and do it as quick as I can, is outcome and output and the differences between them and the importance. The difference between leadership and management, fundamental differences, and the difference between strategic and tactical activities. So, you had an RIP, you beat me to it. I am renowned for being a tad controversial, and I first used this slide at the Construction Industry Council's away day. There we go. I did soften it, to be fair, but we'll come more onto this, and said actually that innovation in the construction industry kind of died at around the 70s. Apart from there are some people, yourself, Keir, whatever, you know, are further along, but generally we lost our opportunity. Why I think that is because of, and I didn't know it at the time, there's this book here, The Architecture Machine, funny font, by someone called Nicolaus Negroponte. Written in the 70s, I was 1, so I can't pretend that this was new to me then. But he wrote this wonderful book, thank you, you can tell she's a mum, on the implications of digital era entering architecture. And he's still around today. He formed things like the MIT Media Lab and various other things. But he said there would be 3 stages, or he proposed 3 stages. Accommodation, using technology to replicate an analog process. Adaptation, extending a newly digital process into new incremental functionality, and eventually evolution, creating new and otherwise unanticipatable practices, stuff that we don't even know and can't even think about. Interestingly, the subtitle to this inside the book is Toward a More Human Environment. I think that's quite telling, particularly today. So I'll offer to you that the potential of BIM started in the 70s, big mainframe, it was 3D, it was data rich, and then along came Bill Gates and Autodesk, and we've seen the slide. We all digitized our drawing boards, and we didn't change a lot. And in fact, we started probably being dragged down, if you like, by the limitations of these tools. I do find it with a degree of irony that Autodesk are trying to reinvent themselves with Revit at the moment, but you know, Revit isn't BIM. It is a tool that's being used. We've heard that already, but you know, we haven't seen anything yet. Anyway, another reason we as the construction industry tend to be stuck in accommodation is we frequently do this. We get it round the wrong way. We don't often see the bigger picture. Egan did it to a certain extent. It was right to say there were problems with construction and the construction of buildings, but it's but part of the problem. And if you put that as the primary focus, you don't really get any benefit. So today, where are we? Again, paraphrasing Negroponte, but the path towards the evolution of the built environment has been painfully long and challenging, 40 years and going, but we are now again at the eve of adaptation, I would argue, as a result of BIM level 2 merging towards BIM level 3. We'll come on to that. It might be a forced adaptation, because we are in a situation where if you don't, you know, there is that harsh thing. You either BIM or you disappear into some strange obscure craft industry somewhere else. There'll still be a niche for that, but it's not going to be the main arena. Information technology is the thing that's accelerating us towards evolution as well, at rates of knots we've not seen before. We all now have smart devices. Who here doesn't have a smartphone? You don't have one. Oh dear, you don't have one either. But you're very much in the minority. But the idea of someone saying, I'd have this device on my phone that I could do this with, if you said that to someone as little as 3 years ago, they'd be like, what? I mean, it's actually 5 years when it really kicked off, when the iPhone came out, which is 5 years ago now. So the rate of change is phenomenal. There's an interesting argument, I think it came from over here, a question I wanted to pick up on about, when do you choose to BIM? I'd say, well, try and think of it in another analogy. When do you choose to go down to the high street, crawl around a whole load of shops to try and find the best product, or do you go online and use the internet? The same choice scenario. It's not about the scale, it's about the advantage and opportunity it affords. So, what is the context that we're in? And yes, there it is in big letters. Sustainability, I have used it. But I think I use it in a slightly different context. So I'm talking about a low cost, has to be, we don't have much money, low carbon, whatever that means, built environment that sustainably serves society. It's turning it around, slightly looking at it a slightly different way. So, if we're going to find out what that might be, where are we starting from? What is this BIM level 2? We've had some descriptions. I'll give you some now very quickly visually. BIM level 2 is 3D, so get used to it. You will be working in 3D. And from that 3D information, you will be harvesting information. Okay, this is page 64 of the government clients report on BIM. I think Graham, you showed a picture of the cover. If you haven't read it, do read it. Certainly you haven't read the government's construction strategy, which is a really brief document. Get and read that one too. But in essence, that is BIM level 2. 3D model integration of information, harvest information at key stages of the project, and eventually use information harvesting techniques during operational use. So what does that mean? Construction industry again, here we are. And I used to have loads of slides about the different horses and carts, but we are horse and cart. I'm sorry, but we are, as an industry. At best, we're a nice, fit, healthy specimen with a wonderful cart. I used to have loads of knackered horses and all sorts, so I haven't got time, but my favourite one I used to put was a cart on its own and no horse anywhere in sight. It looked beautiful, and it won a Sterling Prize. But the thing is, the horse was dead, so it was completely pointless. But anyway, so this is one of the problems we've got at the moment here. Famous quotes that may or may not actually have been said by Henry Ford, but we're in the same situation if we're not careful. It's kind of like, what is BIM going to enable us? How are we going to do what we've always done better and quicker? This is where I'm concerned about these effort curves and all the rest of it. And that was a wonderful explanation there from Graham about, saying it's because if you replicate your old processes and add BIM to it, it goes, it gets slower, it gets more cumbersome, and various other things. Interestingly enough, I quote Steve Jobs as well, who definitely did say, we do no market research. And yet his products, well, the products of Apple, but primarily under his guidance, have materially changed the world we now live in, whether you like Apple or not. I'm not here to promote Apple, but it was very interesting, him taking stuff. So that's something for us to think about, is what are our expectations of BIM? Because, here you go, we are a horse and cart, you see it, you slam BIM onto it, and guess what? It doesn't work. So, we're in this period of accommodation, if you like. We said that, the Negroponte stages. The construction industry, I would argue, because of government level 2 BIM being forced by 2016, we've heard about that, will have developed both an information culture, because they're going to have to harvest information, whether it's in COBie or whatever, from their models, and they will be used to communicating with each other with 3D information. All the other speakers have told us about that. But one of the questions I've got is, will we have improved? I'm not sure, because that's a cultural one, maybe more so. But we will be at a better measure, which is quite interesting or possibly painful. Will the built environment be lower cost, lower carbon? We don't know. That's one of the drivers for it. Will we still be building prototypes? I hope not, but that's one of the things we do at the moment. We just think about that as a concept. The car industry used to do it, used to build loads of cars and keep crashing them into walls until they found one that was safest. They don't do that anymore, or only on maybe one or two. They do it virtually and digitally because it's way more effective, and you can crash. You might have been able to afford a crash 10 cars. Now you could crash 1 million cars with different variants. Unfortunately, we've not yet got our heads around that in the built environment. We build a building and then wonder why it doesn't quite work. I think you said you were going to be aggressive towards certain types of people. I can't remember what behaviours things you were saying, but I'm going to start slapping people who say, look at my BREEAM excellent building at design stage, then 6 months down the line, the energy usage is all over the place, and they go, well, that's because the users didn't understand. Oh, really? Could it be that your building didn't understand the users and support what they are trying to do? Your parent, adult, child thing. Very, very good. Are we getting that wrong? I think, though, what this gives us, because we're being forced down it by the government, whether we like it or not, is we have a basis for adaptation. Now let's look at some of the elements of what we might mean by adaptation. And this is one, again, that I'm getting slightly bored about now, is the argument of CapEx, OpEx. We all know what we mean by CapEx and OpEx here. Capital expenditure versus operational expenditure, yeah? So what you spend on the building versus what it costs you to run. And everybody says, well, yeah, if you spent enough here, this bit will be wonderful. Well, yeah, I'm sure it would, but show me how you can prove that. So the reality is OpEx is the best we can get. We cannot yet crystal ball gaze. The culture we're moving towards, which is going to be data-rich built environment, we will start to have the metrics that can put this argument together. But in the period of adaptation, OPEX is always going to be the best we can get. We cannot, and the ways we have at the moment of predicting, like BIM and such like, are just tick box exercises. Where's it not gone? Fact of the matter is we're dealing with CapEx, and that's what we can afford. There is a finite budget. You guys are working with it all the time, trying to get your squeeze of margin. Interesting that point you raised. Don't be shy about it. Ray Crotty spilt the beans on the construction industry with his book, Implications of Building Information Modelling. So the cat's out of the bag anyway. I would argue that we should be worrying about CapEx and getting the balance there, and the balance between design processes and construction technologies. What I mean by those things, by design processes, everything we do to understand a client's requirements and provide a proven solution to satisfy those requirements. So I include construction in design versus construction technologies, the what and how of construction materials, fabric, components, and how assembled. To make that even more obvious, this is not moving as quick as it should. Construction technologies, whether, you know, it's what we throw at a building to make up for the fact that we haven't got it quite right. You know, we had to add some plant because the air conditioning, the cooling didn't work. Or we think by making excessive use of electricity acceptable by use of renewables. It's a cheap and poor excuse. You can go the other way. I'm not here to comment on the architecture here, but you can use design processes, and this is a highly functional, naturally ventilated theatre. Trouble is, to be able to do this, you have to have the access of some of the brightest minds in Cambridge University. So it's not possible to do this in a few stages, or is it? Because get the balance right. This is one of the powers of BIM, or information, is that we can now be looking at a built environment modelling and simulation. So actually model what's going on inside a building, not just the actual walls and floors and everything else that contains it, because that's the bit that actually matters. So, adaptation, moving into that thing of adaptation, and this is where we bring in the concepts of output. So output is what we've been focusing on for years. It's buildings, building design and construction, everything we heard about. CapEx, if you like, or more simplistically, the cup, seeing you've all just come back from coffee break. Outcome is building in use. So what happens as a result of that building? Buildings in use, OPEX, it's the coffee. I know which of these two is more significant, and I think you do as well. You know, you need the cup, we acknowledge that, but it's the coffee that you want. Okay, we at the moment, and we've heard some wonderful examples about creating excellence in built environment outcomes. This is actually some work in progress with the plan of work, and there's some interesting stuff around that in a wider sense, but this is kind of work in process. But these are, if you like, the generic stages of the plan of work, going from preparation down to post-completion. And what we tend to do, as we know, during early parts of the process, we have design output, whether it's models, drawings, sketches, specifications, that should, and we've heard how it can, seamlessly move into construction output. So the whole thing works together. We move from from design to construction, and it's all output. So there's a whole load of developing design information, I'm not going to teach you how to design, that feeds into activities related to design, yeah? So they're coming from that. So it might be applying for planning permission is an activity related to design. Some other form of approval, going out to tender, any of those things, they're all activities related to that. Lo and behold, all of these have profound outputs at certain stages. Collectively, all of those outputs at every single stage, you'll acknowledge, have outcomes. So there is a result, you know, it's cause and effect. Something is done that will have an outcome. So the question is, and I think the opportunity is, how do we move towards built environment outcomes? How do we move towards making this what we are providing? Well, it starts by better defining what an outcome might look like. It's something we have possibly lost, certainly as an architectural profession, is that idea of definition, because without definition, you can't ever hope to realize it. It almost becomes a happy accident. So you can plan for successful outcomes. Outcome targeted brief, terminology I've used for a while. Actually, and it relates, Graham, to what you were saying here, it's the business plan. It's actually the why of the project. Why are we even bothering? What are the questions I need answering? Who do I need to accommodate? And what we can do, not my words, government words, the idea of an intelligent brief, a brief driven towards successful realization of outcomes. And then, throughout this process, you have the opportunity to verify. Is what I'm doing now, at this point in the project, taking me towards the successful realization of those outcomes? If it's not, then it's a wasted piece of effort. So it's one of the things, there is a harsh reality that we, as architects, waste anywhere between 40 and 50% of our effort doing stuff that has no material value or benefit in the end building. So you want to work out how you're going to work out how am I going to fit BIM into this? Well, strip all that waste out in the first place. Anyway, verification goes on through until you eventually reach successful project outcomes. Some of the observant there who are still awake would have seen green balls again and think, hold on, I've seen those before. And lo and behold, they come in here again until project outcomes can be validated against the brief and we were successful. And lo and behold, I would argue to you that level 2 BIM is the information culture that will allow you to start working and thinking in those ways. Technology will not do this for you because it's a dumb tool to a greater or lesser extent, but it's all about information. Think about what am I going to do with this information. So we've seen this as well. I love this one. 2016, the Bew-Richards diagram. We're all going to be up that thing by 2016. The bit it's missing though, I think, is, come on, this overlay. That's kind of not been thought about. The difference of leadership and management. Simple term, shared, structured, or whichever. Leadership about doing the right things. Management doing things right. Most of the activity in BIM at the moment is at this level. This is how you do it, how you structure your information, all the rest of it. How do we know if we're doing the right things? Well, some principles. How am I doing for time? I don't know, I'm running on here. Another 5 minutes? Oh, sheesh, I've got loads to do then. Right, we're going to race. Quick thinking, engineers, system thinkers, or we could run in to 5 minutes of questions. Right, engineers. There's some in here. You're all inherently system thinkers. You're extensively rational and predictable. Architects like me, inherently design thinkers. I could say, no, I won't. Hugely intuitive, envisioning future scenarios. You take future leaps. What does that look like? I'm going to rush now. Plan to process, systems lifecycle, plan to work as you understand it. Let's look at it driven towards the delivery of outcomes, and we will see that every action we have taken us towards construction will have an impact on the eventual use of that building. I'll show you how in a minute. The leap to say, we're here, we want that building over there, is design thinking. It's that thing, it could look like this. Yeah? That's what architects are very good at. What engineers are very good at is once that problem, the question's been asked, is analysing it, taking it apart, and then successfully putting it back together again. So it's the synergy of these two mindsets that allow us, firstly, to build the right building, and, oh, where's this not going? To build that thing right, joined up with verification and validation. We are really going to run out of time. I haven't got time. I will share copies of these slides. BIM and a system, change the standard terminology to systems-based thinking, and add outcome and output definition to here. So outcome, definition, decomposition, output, design, intent, construction, execution. Okay, is that all right with people? Because this is the more complex bit. Okay, I'll come to this side, gives me more time. Right, because the people are going, what the hell's he showing us now? So, back to basic concepts. We have to accept the fact that when we're talking about the design and successful delivery of the built environment, we need a mixture of mindsets. We need design thinkers and system thinkers. And if we don't understand and support each other with that, it won't happen. So as an architect, I can have, and you said about this, fantastic ideas about possible scenarios. We can now use information technology to start to see if I'm right or wrong or talking out my ass or whatever I'm doing. But to actually successfully deliver it, we need system thinkers. Engineers, contractors, specialists, people who can actually do the nuts and bolts. So, outcome definition, leading into output, design intent, construction execution. This is soft landings. People have seen the soft landings initiative, certainly look at it. Leading to output, integration, outcome realization, which is the whole soft landing scenario. And the link between these, so A definition of use, need and requirement can ultimately be validated against use, acceptance and satisfaction. So I set about doing this project because I wanted to improve business productivity in my workspace by 10%. I've achieved it, or whatever, or I haven't. You know, verification of links as well. And lo and behold, BIM is the magical thing that sits in the middle of here. Integrated design for construction manufacture. And there you go. The green balls, the culture, is what you can start to do with this information. Remember, it's all about information and how you manipulate it. So we move towards a world of integrated output. Yeah, we've seen it. Great presentations of it all going together. It's all seamlessly integrated. It's wonderful. The output is great. BIM sits wonderfully in that area. Remember, I've now raised the issue of building environment modeling. What is actually going to happen in that building? And this is one of the things, if you do that here, it's a bit late because you've made so many assumptions. If you've not got it right, it's a bit like, and we see this, it's like build the building in the virtual environment first, understand how you're going to build it, then build it for real correctly. I'm arguing, get the building working for its users correct in the virtual environment as well. So, that being the case, we have to sort of move some of these activities, building environment modeling, earlier, that informs building information management or modeling, that in turn can lead to building environment modeling again and building performance evaluation. So the whole thing of this information cycle, this information purity that runs through the whole event. Right, we are very close now. There's a funny bit coming up, so it's worth it. So for me, that's the kind of adaptation of what we can do. We can actually say we are an information brokering industry that happens to produce buildings. I've got a wonderful example of that, but I probably haven't got time. Anyway, moving, where will that then take us? Evolution. Well, laws of physics, extensively rational and predictable. Very exciting that they found the Higgs boson, and it isn't moving faster than the speed of light as it was at one point or whatever. You know, Einstein and others, Newton, they were all right. All that's well and good. Again, we are mostly irrational and frequently unpredictable. This is why people in the building, energy use goes up. So we have a bit of a wicked problem. We have BIM, and if you like, the adaptation of BIM that allows us to look at building physics. If you like, building architecture, the physical form, with the building services, MEP guy here, who saw that, and we can find out whether that building physics will actually work. However, there's a ruddy great elephant in the room, and it's all of us. Yeah? And that elephant is human beings and human interaction. Thankfully, there is an emergent science about this called behavioral economics, how we all behave and how we can predict these things. So I would argue to you that where we really need to be going with this information is a combination of architecture and building physics with behavioral economics, with people in buildings, because that is the route to excellence in built environment outcomes. So very quickly here, I just Revit more, but currency of interdependent cooperation. We can see it's information. Information is everything, and information how people interact with that. I would say to people, what's this? And some bright in the room says, it's about the size of the internet. I said, no, it's about half the size of a typical Revit model. But hey, so we've definitely got some Revit users in the room. No, in all truth, Revit's not quite that, but anyway, that is roughly about the size of the internet. It's an awful lot of information. Anybody who's actually tried to use Revit here, in reality, knows how clumsy, awkward, and in fact it doesn't have to be Revit, it could be Graphisoft, Arcia, they get big, they get awkward. And yet, we have something that's 500 billion gigabytes, and we can look at it. How do we look at it? Well, sorry, you mentioned Excel a number of times, so you were a standing target. One of my favorite columnists back in March of this year, Kingdom of Big Data, which is what we are now in, the guy who only has Excel is blind. We cannot be manipulating information in the ways that we've always done it. Jobs said about computers themselves, software yet to be developed will revolutionize the way we learn. He's right. Unfortunately, at the moment, we perpetuate these rather arcane tools. We are squashing the opportunity of what BIM really leads to us. The tools we have been using are rehashes of old technology. There are new tools we need to look at. We heard the importance of language. Here's a classic example. This is my business business colleague talking to his son. And I think the wonderful here is that, you know, not sure, no one can take me at the Mo, was asking about a lift to cricket. But does that make me number 2? So this is my colleague saying his son thought he was number 2 because mum was clearly number 1. But of course not. This is no one. So it's like, oh, Dad. So there is a need to set a common language. But whether it is we have to all become, you know, in this one language, IFC, Kobe is a subset of that I don't have time to explain. I don't think it's so much of a worry because of this. The semantic web and tools we use every day. You can search 500 billion gigabytes of data like that. You all know you can do it. Or even you, without your smartphone, you probably have used the internet and maybe Google. So, there is hope for us all, and I'll just plug a RABA project here, bimgateway.co, which is using semantic technology to map the whole of unicast, and you can do it on your mobile phone. You know, so how we use technology, we have to turn it around the other way. They're not big and clumsy. So I'm on the final ones now, very quickly, because I'm sorry, this is a gallop. But BIM, the arena of accommodation, where we are now. It is all about building, information modeling, and or management, however you want to do it. It is entirely tactical. It is about outputs. It's about management. It's about knowing how to put a building together well. This is great stuff. It needs to be done, but that's what it's about. How do I put this together most effectively, most efficiently, in a most sustainable manner, and everything else? So what is the BIM of adaptation and evolution? I would argue it is about brief. It's about understanding the information, everything you were saying. Why am I doing? Why is it about? But it is about information. Information more than just data. Data for me is just a collection of statistics. It becomes information when it has a purpose. And it's about manufacture. Construction is dead. We need to manufacture our buildings. It's what you showed us. You know, we cannot construct as we always have. And it's about maintaining them so that they're viable. It's about maintaining existing stock. And I would say that is very much more strategic. It's very much about outcomes, and it's very much about leadership. It's about knowing what is the right thing that should be done, not just how to do it. So, as a final piece, I will be as bold as to say that construction industry really did die as we knew it in the 1970s. And accommodation, I hope, will end round about this year for people generally, because of events like this, what people are doing. The period of adaptation is being forced by the government. You know, it's not that difficult if you change your mindset. But if you try and do what they're asking you to do on top of what you've always done, it's a massive, massive burden. It's a change of mindset, change of working. So I would offer you that we have this opportunity. Long live the evolution. It's the built environment industry. This is what we have to aspire to. We have to lift ourselves beyond construction, and contractors and those that manufacture and build are a key part of this. So I'm not saying it's separate from that, but we have to think beyond just building buildings. We need to be rich in innovation, focused on excellence in outcomes through sustainable manufacture of outputs. And I would say, echoing as my final slide here, toward a more humane environment. Richard, you set this wonderfully at the start, and that's what it's about. Unless we, as an industry, can better serve the needs of society, then why are we bothering? And information technology is the route. Sorry I overran. Thank you for your time.